Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London, and this morning I'm looking at a book which has come to us from the Legal Action Group. It's their annual publication called the Legal Aid Handbook. This is for the year 2020 to 2021. This time round it's been edited by Vicky Ling as the main editor, with Sue James and Carol Storer, and there's contributions from Anthony Edwards and a number of other expert contributors. As I say, the book has appeared. It's extremely useful for anybody involved in legal aid matters. I've given the title for our book review the following: This LAG Handbook remains the only annual comprehensive short guide to the legal aid scheme. And that's basically what it is. I'll tell you a little bit about the book in a minute. Let's have a look at it first of all. There it is. It's a paperback, as you can probably see. And you can see the front of it there. It's the actual title's on its side. But you can see that the spine has basic information there. And then on the back, you probably can't read most of that, but it's just some comments about the book itself. Now inside you can see there's a shaded area. You can probably just make that out. That shaded area is actually the annex, or actually the appendix at the back. That's including legislation and various other bits and pieces. Right at the back, of course, you do have an index, and the index is by paragraph numbering. But one thing I did find quite useful was the Appendix D on criminal costs. Frankly, legal aid is an incredibly complex area. It's been made much more complicated than it needs to be, but that's the way it is. There's the front page there. There is actually a website to go with it, www.legalaidhandbook.com, which is quite helpful. And then you've got a dedication, which is, well, I'll just leave you to read that. And then, of course, a preface, and then after the preface you get the list of contributors, a large number of contributors. I can't go through them by name, but they're people who I'm sure you will know, some people you will know, who've put a huge amount of effort into this book. And then after that you've got the contents section, and you can see the detail. It says read this before you start, so it gives you an indication of how to use the book. You can see the various chapter headings all the way through. A total number of 25 chapters, and then what you've got after that are 5 appendices or appendix. Then the table of cases. Some cases are of course involved in this area, and then after that you've got some statutes. Then after that you have the statutory instruments. And after that you've got a very useful table of European and international legislation, only a little bit but enough, and then the actual abbreviations. This area is covered in abbreviations, just like a lot of things in law now are, and it's a problem because you do need to know what you're talking about with some of the abbreviations, which are not necessarily what you might think they are, so it's worth referring to the abbreviations should you need to. Then there's a glossary of terms, which is also useful because, as I've said, they've made the concept of legal aid incredibly complicated, quite unnecessarily so, but it's public money, so they probably feel they ought to. But I'm not impressed with it at all as a system, certainly because of the problems it causes for practitioners and for the claimants themselves. There's the first part, Part A, legal aid advice. Then you can see the structure. You get a mini index, and then you get into the work itself. You can see how it runs through. Then of course there is footnoting at the bottom, which is useful, and of course you've got the paragraph numbering at the sides, depending on what you're looking for, and that's how the book runs through. Conducting a family public law case, that's what I've been doing recently, for instance. That's one area, quite useful. Chapter 8, that particular one. And you can see again the standard structure. So what do I say about this book? Well, I think it's an important book. I think everybody, most people in chambers know about it, and certainly many solicitors who are involved in the legal aid scheme will also know of it. and be aware that it's a very useful book. This is what we say anyway. We all owe the Legal Action Group a debt of gratitude for production of their first-class law books, and which remain, of course, so useful to us as practitioners in the courts. And quite often I will see these books in the courtrooms, so it's not something that is just for us. It's across the board, and it is very useful for a whole range of people to refer to. And of course, the subject of legal aid remains a serious problem area for the practitioner and the applicant because of the massive budget constraints. So we welcome, of course, the new Legal Aid Handbook for the year 2020 to 2021. I'm recording this at the end of the first part of the COVID-19 pandemic. The book came to us much later than we originally thought, hence the review in the summer of 2020. Obviously things are going to be very different legally in the future, but at the moment this book, of course, is extremely helpful for those such as some of my clients who are right in the middle of proceedings where legal aid certificates have been issued. Again, I don't know what the future will hold. This current edition for the calendar year has been edited by Vicky Ling, Sue James and Carol Storer, with Anthony Edwards assisting, together with a further 10 contributors who are mentioned at the front of the book. And of course the title continues to grow as the legal aid scheme becomes ever more complicated. And it's a tool which we continue to use to support our legal aid cases, of course. I think the clerks will find this very helpful, your practice manager will. Trying to talk to people at the legal aid agency is not the easiest thing to do, and that's being charitable about it. Frankly, the whole system is in need of urgent review, but that's not going to happen in the short term at all. Of course, LAG describe the work as, quote, the only comprehensive guide to the legal aid scheme. Well, I think that's right, which of course it is. And they continue by saying that it's the one book no legal aid lawyer can afford to be without. Absolutely, it's not an expensive book, it's something you should have on your shelf at your office or chambers. And how right they are, for it reviews the legal framework of the scheme, which can be so confusing to many people at all levels. That includes people like me, the judiciary, who really don't know very much about it, frankly, either, and of course the people who have to do the work, generally speaking, which is the practice managers and the clerks. And I think they have a really appalling time, because the whole of the scheme is completely and utterly riddled with complexity, which doesn't need to exist. Having got that statement clear, what we're given here, which is what you may be looking for, is a full discussion of civil, criminal and family legal aid, and an analysis of the leading case law since the advent of the controversial LASBO Act, Legal Aid and so forth Act, which of course is in urgent need of further revision for the 2020s. When, I don't know. There are 2 new chapters added this year, one a public law chapter edited by Sylvia Nicolau Garcia, plus a chapter on costs appeals written by Paul Keeley. That I think will be quite useful, because money is always at the heart of the problem with legal aid. And of course the problem is that apart from waiting a very long time to get paid, then you could well find that what you've actually applied for and what you think you're going to get is not the same sum of money that you want or you feel you should have. So therefore the costs appeals will be of some help. Other experts called in to assist in this edition are Polly Brendan, who covers exceptional case funding, Samantha Little on advocacy in family cases, which I thought was very helpful, Simon Mullins on housing, and a chapter on immigration from Hilton von Herbert and Daniel M. Grutters. So thank you to all concerned for the work they've done. This year's book gives us a useful, practical, step-by-step guide, of course, as usual, on the actual conduct of cases, on how to get paid, advocacy, and financial and contract management. And there's also a comprehensive package of guidance on performance monitoring and quality standards, which of course again are very much to the fore. And we did find the specialist chapter on family, immigration and mental health, community care, housing, crime, and the new chapters on exceptional case funding and public law extremely helpful and of use to both new and seasoned practitioners. And for those who still find wading through the LAA online portal difficult, and that's an understatement, there is a section on tactics and tips on how to use the CCMS, which I found very difficult, with useful workarounds, as the editors put it. Well, again, that's helpful, but also there are problems because the CCMS itself as a system is really very complicated and doesn't work particularly satisfactorily. Obviously, it's better than previous systems, but all of these computer systems leave a great deal missing. And it's not something that's helpful at all. It makes life much, much more difficult. Now, the in-depth guidance on costs which we get here does make the understanding of the system easier to understand. And there is a new chapter on IFAs and ICA costs appeals, plus, of course, the latest policy developments which have come in. Although, as I said earlier, the work appeared before the full horror of COVID-19 hit us at the beginning of 2020. So I don't know where we're going to go, but at least we've got this for the time being as we see what happens as the profession, and certainly all aspects of the law, begin to sort of reawaken, and we see where we're going. Now, the book contains most useful case studies. The checklists are very helpful, and the practical tips very much in the house style of LAG publications, because they're giving us clear guidance on the ever more complex legal aid system, and I think it remains essential reading for everyone involved in legal aid, from new caseworkers to experienced lawyers and managers, and it's of course set at a reasonable price for all. Now, the editors state that they've endeavoured to give us a complete account of the legal aid scheme as at the 1st of January 2020. I appreciate this is halfway through the year when I'm reviewing this, but clearly there's been some sort of time lag, and the publication of the date is cited as at around the 18th of February 2020. Let's just have one last look at the book. There it is again. There's the front, there's the spine, you can see there, front and spine. Then at the back, it's just some basic blurb. Some of what's on the back I've put in the review, but that's purely so that you know what's actually in the book. Then opening it in the middle, conducting a housing case. There we go. You can see the structure there. Paragraph numbering is at the side. Footnotes, not too many. They're very good on footnotes, LAG. They don't spend a huge amount of time, but they give you what you really need. And of course, you can see right at the beginning of that chapter, chapter 12, you get a little mini index, and it runs all the way through. The footnotes themselves are not too detailed. Conducting a community care case, that's another one that's come in. Again, you can see where we are with that. Again, a very great thanks to Vicky and her team, and to all at the Legal Action Group. You make our lives a great deal easier with these books, and it's a great deal of thanks which is due to all of you for the work you do for us. Thank you to all. Bye-bye.